Are these on? Oops. Mine is
Yeah, you
down.
got to turn it on, Mac.
Yeah, I think so, isn't it?
Okay, I can hear you. I hear you, Jim.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Now they're on.
Call to order of a work session of the Goodyear City Council, Monday, September 21, 2009. All members of the Goodyear Council are with us this evening. Since this is a work session, everything is for discussion only, and no action can or will be taken. We have 4 items on our agenda, and first concerns the bulk waste collection, then Ethics Committee report, and then Representative Holmes to Owners of Arizona will present information, and then we'll end with the Hidden Valley Transportation Framework. So, let's start with bulk waste collection program, and it's Charles McDowell.
Thank you, Mayor Kavanaugh, members of council. I've been told I have 10 minutes tonight, so I'm going to move along. Those of you that know me know that I usually speak another language on the wastewater side, but tonight we will talk trash.
Just give us the bulk of your comments. Okay?
Oh, boy.
I have competition.
And it wasn't me this time.
What I'd like to do tonight is talk about 2 main areas. Talk about the status of the current bulk waste pilot program, and then talk briefly about some alternatives to that current pilot program that we can consider moving forward. First, a few facts. I think most of you have seen these in various forms before, but these are from the 2007 survey that was done with the citizens. 12% of our residents never even use our bulk program. 75% use it less than once per month. 22 use it weekly, and we collect approximately 4,000 tons of bulk material on an annual basis. So the pilot program, we'll talk with first. Last week we realized we had some difficulties. We actually realized before last week that we had difficulties. I've got 3 slides here that may kind of capture things for us.
Expression.
These were our residents. This was our staff. And that was me after Monday's meeting.
Your hair's gray now.
Yes, it is. And I've
simple
gained a
observation.
few pounds as well. But I'm not making light of the situation, but we did recognize early on that we had problems. Staff took steps to get in and try to make modifications. Unfortunately, we could have done a better job. As of the end of Friday, we completed 3 weeks of the new program. Staff picked up 1,700 scheduled pickups that were scheduled through the online scheduling service, and we did 1,468 courtesy pickups. Now, courtesy is perhaps a misnomer, but once we realized that people did not get the message about scheduling, they put their bulk trash out like they normally would on their scheduled day, and we did not pick that up. That got to be quite a backlog. We rectified that by adding additional crews and going back and picking that material up. And as we picked that material up, tried to educate the homeowner, knocking on the door, actually talking to the resident. As of Friday, the backlog was cleaned up. We got into all the neighborhoods. We added additional staff from water and from wastewater to get out and run some additional crews to get the backlog picked up. Our communication program is ongoing, very aggressive. We're canvassing the neighborhoods, going door to door, trying to get the message out more aggressively than we were. On a positive note, the call volume is down. The first, just prior to last Monday evening, our call volume was 60, 70 calls a day. All of those, for the most part, questioning why we were doing what we were doing, why they couldn't get service, what was going on. Friday's call volume was down to 24 calls. And the calls that we're getting now are calls that say, I understand you have a new program. I'm trying to schedule my bulk pickup. I can't get in, on the next day like I was told. So we're educating people and walking them through how to actually set up and get scheduled. Challenges that we've noticed, perhaps the biggest one that we really failed to realize is with a scheduled program, there's the potential for bulk trash to be in the streets 5 days a week. With the previous program that had a designated day, that didn't occur. There was trash in the neighborhood one particular day per week. A lot of folks are unhappy with that particular possibility. We didn't communicate as well as we could have. We had a relatively quick rollout of this program. We should have done a better job on the implementation and the education component. We certainly underestimated the backlog that was in the streets due to people putting material out on their scheduled day. And we heard from a lot of folks that they truly like to have a defined day. They like to know when they put it out and be done with it. And people let us know about the amount of travel through their neighborhood. With a scheduled program, the potential is to have a waste truck in their neighborhood 5 days a week. So our response over the last few weeks, as I said, we had additional department staff assisting the sanitation group. We got wastewater collection and the water distribution staff knocking on doors, giving handouts, going through neighborhoods to help educate. We extended the crew staff time to 12 hours. We staggered, ran multiple shifts to get caught on the backlog. We are preparing bill stuffers to continue with that ongoing educational program. We're evaluating a zonal system. If you recall, the prior program had a 5-zone system. The scheduled pickup does not have a zone system. The original intent was to allow everyone access to a Monday pickup. That was the reason behind that. So we're going back and reevaluating zonal pickups. And then we're looking at possible modifications or tweaking to the program or combinations thereof. The lessons learned to date with the existing program, we did a lousy job in the transition. There's no question about that. Getting the word out, we did not do a good job. That's critical to letting residents know what's changed and why and how they comply with the new system. And we realized that picking up that bulk that was out there had to occur while we were still educating. So we got caught up on that. Zones truly are more efficient for the reasons that I had just discussed. And for the most part, people that called us, there was frustration, obviously, but they want to follow the rules. They want to be in compliance. They can't do that unless they know what the rules are, and we didn't do a good job getting that out there. I take responsibility for that. So let's move briefly into alternatives to the existing pilot for consideration. In designing or developing the program, we tried to keep some basic public policy components in the back of our mind, criteria. Effectiveness, that's essentially how easy is it to keep our streets clean? How clean are the streets? Cost recovery, it's an enterprise fund, so obviously the rate has to cover the costs. Customer ease, how easy is it for a resident or a customer to access the system? Customer flexibility, can they have multiple pickups or are they locked into one day per week, 1 day per month, 1 day per quarter? That's the flexibility component. And then what rate is required to sustain the level of service that we agree we want to provide to the residents. So some alternatives to consider. We can return to the previous program. We can go with a bi-weekly program. Pick up every other week. That effectively does limit service. It's a drop in service, but it's certainly a viable option. We can go to a monthly pickup, like many communities do. That's also a significant decrease in service. We could do a quarterly pickup and an annual pickup, all of which are additional decreases in the service level. Now, in evaluating those potential options, we developed a little ranking matrix, and we chose a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being absolutely does not meet the needs or the expectation for the criteria, and 5, being just the opposite, that it does meet all those criteria. On the far right-hand column is the cost estimated, the monthly rate estimated to support that particular service level in that program. So just kind of reviewing these, the weekly program does not fit the existing rate structure. There would be a rate modification required to return to weekly. The other choices would meet the existing cost recovery program. And you can see in the column labeled total, the relative score of those particular options. Now, the biweekly one, which is roughly in the middle of that chart, we believe the biweekly program could be done for the same monthly rate, certainly in terms of the labor costs. We're a little less clear on the actual operating costs. And by the operating costs, I mean how much fuel are we going to use? What will be the cost of fuel? How many street miles are we driving on that particular service level option? So that component would need to be evaluated with some time. Those are all certainly viable options for the council to consider if, in fact, this council wants to make a change at this point in the game. Now, keep in mind, we only have 3 weeks under our belt with the new program. I think I did okay on time.
Very good.
Okay, we'll ask for input. Before I do, I think what we need to know in evaluating the biweekly, how do we get from here to the biweekly? In other words, what do we tell the citizens for the next couple of weeks in picking up their trash? How do we do that?
There's going to be an educational component associated with it, obviously. The most efficient way of moving to biweekly would be to go to a biweekly with a zoned approach. Go back to the zone approach. People like that. People are comfortable with that. I'd be in Zone 4. I know exactly what day my material needs to be out there. I wouldn't have the flexibility of scheduling in advance, but I'd have that service once every 2 weeks. We would need to roll out that information, bill stuffers, perhaps postcards to be mailed. Staff has drafted some of those things to let people know what that shift is going to be. We need to give adequate time this time around to get that message out there. And then in that transition, make sure we are out picking up all the material that we see in those streets. That has got to be a strong component of any kind of a transition to another program. So, Mayor, it really boils down to education and staying ahead of material in the streets.
But you would have an effective date when it starts. And until that effective date, would you continue with the call-in and internet? Is that what we would do?
Yes,
And the courtesy collections.
absolutely.
All right. Okay, so the recommendation by staff is to go to biweekly, correct? Okay. Comments, questions?
I have a question.
Let me start over here.
First, I want to thank, I don't know if this is on, I want to thank staff. I know right after the meeting on Monday that you made a strong effort of at least getting out there and getting all the trash off the street, and I appreciate that. I read something, actually, I received some calls from some of the residents out there that appreciated the fact that you got right out there and picked up that trash. And I think it's important in this transition that we make sure that the number one priority is the streets clean. So if there's any trash out there, the number one thing is to make sure that we're getting all that picked up till we have enough time to make sure that all are kind of educated. And I personally, kind of like the set date. Okay, biweekly. I'm kind of curious on the cost differential between that and what we did before. Is that the actual $1.60 that you have up there per resident? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes, it is. It was $22.80 was the monthly rate.
And what that translates into, Joe, is basically, as a rule of thumb, 2 people. Because we did lay off 2 people in order to implement this.
Yeah, I can just tell you, I like the set date. In fact, I was down the street this morning, and one of my own neighbors who was putting trash out, and he says, "It's coming today, right?" I says, "Well, there's so he didn't even know, and he lives 3 doors down from me. Okay, so I appreciate the fact you've been driving through and picking it up, and some of the concerns that the residents had. And I think the biweekly, if it's a fixed date and we get plenty of notice out there, sounds almost like a reasonable compromise from a cost standpoint."
Member Toniak?
I thank you guys, staff. I applaud you for reacting quickly, and obviously a lot of concern. I'm sorry to my colleagues that I wasn't here last week to take a few of the licks with you. We had a bit of a family emergency to attend to. So with that, if we're biweekly, would I be correct in assuming, a zone would have like the first and third Monday, and another zone would have the second and fourth Monday, and so on and so forth? Or what kind of, would it literally be in every other week type? Okay.
We would take the existing 5 zones that folks are familiar with, subdivide those into a total of 10. So staff would be picking up every single day in one of those 10 zones over that 2-week period, those 10 working days, then start the process all over. So you'd have a pickup every other week.
Okay. You just zone 1, 2, 3, 4, so
Right
on
through
and so forth.
to zone
to
10.
10, and then rotate back.
Then
again.
starts back.
So for calendaring purposes, though, for the folks that are in those particular zones, would there just be a calendar built out there on the internet that they could look up or somewhere? Because most folks get into the habit of the first and third or second and fourth or so on and so forth. And when those weeks, the 5-week months are going to throw off that calendar. So you're going to end up going from 1 month being on, you see what I'm saying?
I do. With the 5-zone program, we had a zone map, a colored zone map that we handed out to all the residents.
Right.
So in this case, I would envision that we restructure that or recreate that to be a 10-zone map. And again, the educational component is the critical piece here, making sure that people understand what their day is. If previously they were a Monday and now they're going to be a Thursday, then we need to get that information out there. But more materials, more handouts would support and would help define the program better than we did.
I guess I'm just thinking in terms of communication. I don't want to micromanage this thing, but in terms of communication, somebody's not going to use that service but twice a year, and they're going to have to go to some reference material, and so you're going to have either a calendar built out or, and maybe kind of what I'm driving at is, perhaps if we went to a first and third, second and fourth, there are going to be some 5-week months. Is there something else that same staff can be doing in terms of efficiencies within the city to accommodate another type of service, i.e., I don't know where the expense is in the hazmat, if it's the disposal of it versus the staff, but maybe that's the week, every quarter, or every try part of the calendar, every 4 months, maybe we have a couple of days there that the hazmat's available or something. So let's just, I guess I would urge us, rather than printing a huge calendar, is to go to some set kind of specific benchmarks of first and third or second and fourth, and then that 5th week is an open week, and our guys or gals that are working in this service aren't on the street but maybe doing some other form of service within the community, or maybe it's the big, the scheduled items or something like that. But there's some aspect of it that there's an assurance that the first and third week of the month they're coming through my neighborhood and it's on Wednesday.
The challenge that we'll have doing that is that we've already reduced staff 2 positions. So if we're in a zone that's larger, the more pickups there may be in a zone, then the more challenging that's going to be to get that zone picked up within regularly scheduled work hours and not be incurring OT. We can certainly play with some of those scheduling things and come up with something that seems to make sense. The main reason the zone works is we know where staff is going to be. We can coordinate it. We can manage it. And then we can kind of, with 10 zones, we can kind of build in the number of residents within that given zone to kind of match our resources for pickup.
I think you're looking at it from the standpoint of providing the service, and Rob is looking at it from the standpoint of receiving the service.
Right.
And it's unclear to the person receiving it. For example, did they pick up last week or not, is the question I'm going to ask myself. And the answer to that, if it's yes, then they aren't coming this week, they're going to come next. But you have to know whether the time that they're going to pick up. And every other week, people don't know that. Unless you put out something every time, you don't know what every other week is. Right?
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at, I guess, is look at it from the consistency standpoint of I haven't used a service for 6 months. I now need to put out my VW Beetle for Goodyear trash to pick up.
How do I know where I am in the
And
cycle?
I don't know, what week of the month they were last here, and so therefore I put it out on Monday, but then all of a sudden I realize, now it's out there for 7 days. So
We'll need to play with that a
I
little.
think we need to
They've got the
really,
HOAs screaming
really
at 'em.
look at this past, we need to come at it from the customer perspective on this. And I think we did in setting up a system, but we realized there were some failures in that. The majority of us up here endorsed that system, but, who would have known? So I personally would like to see that consistency, that first, third, second, fourth, that way
As Charles mentioned, we'll play with that, Rob.
And then if there's something, I don't know, is it park cleanup? What is it? There's going to be about 4 weeks in the year then.
There's always plenty to do.
I'm sure there is. There's plenty to do. So maybe they can repay water and fix some leaks.
Okay, Councilmember Souza, comments?
I think it's pretty well said. It's important that we communicate. And that's the problem we find ourselves in today. The pilot program just did get communicated to the citizens. And I'm really basically for the biweekly program. Thought about this all weekend, and that's the one I think is going to do the job. With what Rob brought up, keep that in mind and try to work around those figures. Go.
Member Osborne.
Well, I think that you should go with what the customers asked for, and they've asked for, from what you're saying, they like a designated day. And since the cost is roughly the same, and the fact that regardless of going to every other week or staying with what we've started, you're going to have to educate them. So what's the difference? Now, there is one thing, though, that I would like to say that hasn't been said, and that's the fact that we have an employee, I don't know who came up with this idea, but somebody in the city came up with an idea that had the best interests of the city at heart. They were trying to help with efficiency, and they were trying to save money for the city. And that's something that I want our city to be open to, employee-wise and citizen-wise. And so and even though it may be viewed as a failure to half of the people that were on this list, it was still a risk that we took trying to better the city, and I just feel that should be said. Now, I have no problem with the biweekly, and I think that if that's what the customer wants and that's what they're paying for, then they should get that. And so I fully support that. I guess really that's about it.
Councilmember Cavalier?
It's okay. I support it. At least it's on a schedule, and it's a static, biweekly. They know that it's biweekly. They'll know when this is set up. I hope if we can get the word out and make certain that we've educated the people so that they know what's happening here. Because our problem is communications. I don't think it was anything else. And perception. You had a perception thing where you saw people in a neighborhood saw this trash truck going down their street every day. And all they can think of, this isn't working. This has got to be costing the city more money. To have that truck come down this street every day of the week, when before it only came down the street once. And they don't like to see a lot of trash trucks, one every day on the street. So if this biweekly works, and we have a scheduled pickup day, I think it will work. Because, as Joanne said, people want something that they can tie into as a schedule. And I think this will do it. So let's try it, that's all.
Vice Mayor Lord?
Well, we gave people excellent service the way we had it before. So making any change would certainly bring a lot of questions from citizens. Unfortunately, this one did not work the way we thought it would, and we didn't foresee some of those problems, so we're here. But before I go in and tell you what I agree on, did you get an email I sent today? Because I was unaware of this. But you are limited to 2 cubic yards. So the resident emailed because they have a very large home site. And so they put it all out, and we came to their home, although our people were extremely polite, said, no, you have to divide this up. So it was such a large group that they probably would have to use almost their 6 times a year. So do we have a solution for people like that? Do we have can they call a number? We give them some advice on how to get rid of that much yard trash. And there are a few people that do have fairly large home sites that once a year they clear it out. And obviously they must be doing the work themselves, so it's not being hauled by a professional. So could you look into that also?
We certainly will.
Okay. And I agree. I'm looking through the list of complaints that people made at the last meeting, and some of them agreed, hey, if we have to go the biweekly, in order to save money, they were for that. So I'm thinking that will work well, but I agree with the rest of the council people. Communication is extremely important. It's extremely important when you're on the phone not to come up with some suggestion that you don't even know if that suggestion is going to be made. We need to have a dialogue, and it stays the same all the time. And we can't allow that person on the telephone to get creative if that's not within the program. And the other thing we need to do is we need to be sensitive to people when we're not doing a good job. We don't make excuses. We didn't do a good job. As the city council, did not do a good job when I made the decision to go with this. There were a couple of them that did make the right decision, so now I have to live with this and try to make it better. So that's all I'm asking, that we be extremely sensitive to people and understanding, and particularly those people that work, that are driving long hours to get home, frustrated, and we need to be sensitive to them. So, okay? And thanks. I know this isn't fun for you. Sure.
Okay, sounds like there's strong support for your recommendation. I guess we need a new ordinance. We would need to write the ordinance.
We'll need to review the ordinance and make suggested changes to that based on the new.
And then you'll come back to us, and then we'll make a council decision.
Yes.
But in the meantime, a couple things came up. One is you need to, how are we going to handle extraordinary requirements? Is there a possibility of doing that? Two, every citizen has the right to know precisely when you're going to pick up. And we need to plan this transition smartly so that it transitions real smoothly into the new system from where we are today. Okay.
Just real quick footnote, I thought we addressed the extraordinary circumstance on a pay-as-you-go example, even in the current ordinance. When we met as a committee and we came back before council, there was an ability for somebody to make a phone call because it had to do with construction material, but then it was also above and beyond a larger size that they could coordinate that. I thought we had already addressed that, so we may have a means and a way to do that.
Okay, but they're going to
It may
investigate.
not be well advertised.
Okay. Good. Let's move to the next subject then, and that is the Ethics Committee. We have several members of our Ethics Committee with us today. But, Roark, you're going to start it off, I believe?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I will make the introduction of our presenter this evening. Council may recall this Ethics Committee was appointed in June of 2008 to draft a first-ever ethics policy for the City of Goodyear for its City Council and its employees. This committee met over the course of about 6 months on a biweekly basis through December of last year. Came in front of the council in January of this year and presented their first draft of the ethics policy. Council had a number of questions and concerns about that draft policy, so the committee got together again in April, and took the minutes from this last city council meeting and took those questions and comments to heart, thought about it, met a number of times, and came up with what they would like to present to you today. There's a few significant changes to the document that Major Stephen Anderson will go over with you this evening. and they'll be open to your questions or comments this evening. Catherine Wallinger was scheduled to present to you this evening, and she called in sick this morning. So Major Anderson, at about 12 o'clock this afternoon, volunteered to take over, sight unseen on the PowerPoint, and we appreciate him coming out of the bullpen for us today. And with that, I'll hand the presentation over to Major Anderson. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council, new members. Welcome, and thanks for having us here. Unfortunately, you're not going to see the lovely Ms. Catherine Wallinger. You get to deal with me, but whenever Americans need something, they call the Air Force, right? So, so here we are. All right. Basically, everything that Rourke just said is kind of what you see in front of you. So we're going to kind of go through some of the slides fairly rapidly so we're not wasting your time here, because some of you were here and have been here for a while and kind of have a basic history. Some of the newer members obviously have seen us and may not have a good background as to what happened. So there's basically the courtesy overview slide of what Catherine was going to talk about, which is what I'm going to talk about. And we do have several of the members here, phenomenal group of people that was selected from various backgrounds, from theology to philosophy to legal to you name it, previous experience on councils and or elected officials. So quite a bit of information experience to draw from. Like Rourke said, we were appointed, we met, and we drafted based on what you guys gave us to do. We came, we gave a presentation. You guys thought some things needed to be taken a look at, so we took that back in, took it serious, and got to work right away on the areas that you had some concerns with there. I think this slide is actually worth pausing at for a moment, because it's actually worth noting what it is that we in-house, we kind of were given free rein to come up and do anything we wanted to do, pretty much in accordance with somehow developing some form of an ethics policy. So the interesting thing is that we all kind of came to this collectively that really what we wanted to do is protect the image and the name of Goodyear. Kind of offer the people on this council and others that work and or appointed elected officials, basically anybody associated with the city, kind of give them a firm background and a basis from which to operate on, so that either their actions or things that that they did, either voted on or were engaged in, gave them some protection as well as the city, and it's somewhere a fallback option in case they were ever in a position where they weren't really sure what they needed to do. And of course, obviously protecting city resources, funds, not just the hard things, buildings and stuff like that, but also dollars that would potentially be wasted. And again, so also along with this, create a teaching environment for those that may have never been faced with these kind of situations, and people that fall into positions of leadership that may not have had to have dealt with these issues, kind of a training regimen for them and their workers to go through, so everybody kind of started off on the same sheet of music, and then make this an amendable document where people could go back and take a look as things changed and philosophies changed and ideologies changed over the time that it was working here with everybody. Along with not completely reinventing the wheel, we obviously had the handbook for Policy 700 that was already out there. So we took a good look at that, saw some of the things that were in there, some of the philosophy that was in there, some of the ethics that were already drafted in past years, and didn't come up with something that was completely foreign to that, but actually operated in parallel. And in some areas, really was designed to fill in some of the blanks that were kind of vague in the Policy 700 area. So they were developed in accordance with federal, state, local policies, procedures, and also just good common sense went into a lot of this as well. So some of the highlights, you obviously have the books in front of you. I know some of you have probably taken a look over some of that. The last time the meeting was, there wasn't a lot of areas that seemed to really kind of ruffle any feathers there. So again, these were the areas: fiscal responsibility, public access, meeting laws, kind of the things that you would expect to be in a document. Although I will say that if you peruse some of the local areas, communities, Scottsdale, Phoenix, Flagstaff, and others throughout the country, I think this is actually pretty comprehensive. It's not too long, it's not too short, it kind of gets right to the point and gets to the matter there. And again, we can just skip through these. So areas that we were asked to specifically kind of go back and take a look at and/or that had some concern from the council. Elimination of an ethics commission, or kind of, do we actually need to have an ethics commission, a group of citizens appointed? And you probably remember there was a fairly lengthy matrix as to how that was going to happen and who would serve and how long they would serve and retributional, all this kind of things. And it was kind of basically looked at as this potentially could be used as a weapon from one person to the next, and who's going to fill this and how this is going to fill this, and what power and what strength do these folks have to either kind of censure the people up here at this table or any other worker out there. So we kind of went back and took a good look at that and said, based on what we feel, we could probably get rid of that because we can develop a policy that was a good guideline that would provide enough information for people to act on an ethical behalf, and things that started to raise to that level would probably need to go over to Rourke's office anyway. So that was pretty much voted on and almost unanimously eliminated. Maybe one or two holdouts, but certainly the bulk of everybody did. The other area we went back and took a look at was the gift declaration threshold, which actually, surprisingly, it took a lot less time to get rid of the Complex Ethics Commission than it did to actually decide what was actually worthy of admitting on some piece of paper. So went back and forth, 25, 35, 50, 70, 100, what is actually did. So what we did was we just threw down, we said everybody can live with 50. So we went down with $50, and then after that, somebody needs to write on a sheet of paper and file that away. And of course, that doesn't mean that if you got a $10 baseball from somebody that you feel like, hey, I'm just going to really, CYA here, I'm going to write this thing down, I'm going to file it with somebody, and off it goes. So this was a guideline more along the lines of preventing citizenry at some point in the future from putting you guys up on a poll, and also give you guys an opportunity to go, hey, I'm completely transparent with what I do with the business of the city there. And then incorporate a policy review and an update every 10 years. And of course, it's up to it's more like a guideline that says you really need to look at this on at least every 10 years. But if you want to look at it every 4 months, it's not prohibitory. So, I mean, it's kind of one of those, just as a reminder, you need to come back and take a look at this and see what needs to go there. So what have we obligated you guys to do? Really provide for and allow the city to conduct an annual ethics training or something, a kind of a reminder. This doesn't have to be some labor-intensive 15 hours where you go out and hire the best ethical speaker in the United States, philosopher, etc. It needs to have something that reminds people, hey, we do have an ethics policy, and here are the 4 or 5 basic highlights of this thing here, and here's some more information if you need it. Maintain some form of record accountability, and obviously a hotline we thought was probably a pretty good idea. How citizens could call in and say, hey, I think we've got an issue here. So that's pretty much, we already addressed the $50 and the update and renewal. So is that good? So less than 10? All right. All right. So faster, funnier. So with that, we have in front of you, obviously, the ethics book. You can take a look at it and read through it. In the back of the book are several of the forms that we proposed, for example, for the gift threshold of $50, et cetera. Some of the forms that are in there. So that's pretty much the presentation we have. Obviously, I've got mass support back here, so any questions that I don't know, we'll throw it back to them, and I'm sure they'll know.
Could you introduce the members? Starting with
Stand up and introduce yourself, talk about.
I'm Sandy Hertz.
Regine Mitchell.
Greg Brown.
So, and we're missing about 8 or so, 7 or 8 of them. Again, obviously Catherine, who's sick. So.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. Let's start over on this side this time. Anything?
I have nothing to add. I really appreciate everything that you've done, and I think we just need to go forward with it. Thank you.
I was looking at, I think it's very well done. I think what you put together is precise and not too detailed, and it has exactly what we need to know. And I think this goes for staff too, not just council. But I have a spot in here on the attendance, and under the first bullet, the city
What page,
council-
Frank, if you don't mind?
It's on page 12. Thank you. Big number's 12.
Yep.
Okay, the attendance. On the first bullet, city council, charter states, city council members should be absent for more than 3 consecutive meetings, or 4 meetings in any calendar year without the consent of the council, well, so forth and so on. We've never had that, but,
Yeah, we did. Yes, that's in there.
no, we've never had that problem.
Never had that
No,
circumstance.
never had the problem. You're
Never
correct.
never had the problem.
The requirement, though.
The requirement has always been there, yes.
Yes.
Right.
Now, my question is, and this might be in our charter, how do you appoint a new person, if that should happen? How do you appoint a new council member?
That is addressed.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of council,
That
that is
is-
addressed in the charter
That's in
on
the
how
charter.
you
Okay.
appoint a member. If you lose a member for either resignation, which we
Some
had a
way.
couple of years ago with Councilmember Scott, it's the same process.
So we just, what did we do? We voted on that?
You voted on that. It depends on at what point in the term that the council member leaves. If you leave it early in the 4-year term, you roll to an election, but if you leave later in the term, the council appoints that member.
That was my only question. I went through this, and it seemed very precise, as I said. And I appreciate the time and effort that all the members put into this, because this is something that I would have a hard time digging through and wanting to have to dig out of this thing. It could be problematic without cutting out some of the things that were so detailed and would get us into some, possibly get us into some trouble otherwise. So with that, I'm going to say it's fine. I would be willing to accept it.
Okay. Vice Mayor Lurie?
I just want to thank you for all your time. I thought it was well organized. I thought it was comprehensive. And thirdly, it's going to be extremely helpful to us. Thank you.
Joe?
Only thing I want to add again is to thank all the members for their time. Again, I wasn't here when you were putting all that in, I know, but a lot of time went in coming up with this document. And again, you chose to do that and help us, as opposed to doing something else. So, again, I thank you.
I too thank everybody for your time. I know you thought it was going to be 3 or 4 meetings. I think it probably turned into a lot more than that, and some lengthy hours. So I appreciate everybody hashing through this. This was, I guess you could say I birthed this idea at a meeting, and I appreciate everybody following through on it, staff and council and the members of the commission alike. A couple of clarifying questions that I think are just clarifiers. I don't think they're big debatable. They could be, I suppose. Page 6, section 2.5, when you address outside employment, that first paragraph, I'm putting my letter versus spirit of the law kind of, or policy hat on that first paragraph, addressing about participating in another job. I know it goes on to talk about that in the second paragraph, but there's not a policy that prevents the 7 of us from seeking further employment. So if you can maybe delineate council versus employee in that paragraph, I would appreciate that.
It's page 6.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense, doesn't it?
Let me take a look at that, and in that context,
Yeah.
I'll see if there's anything that
Read it as if you were one of the 7 of us, or a planning and zoning member, or any other commission member for that fact in the city that's a volunteer or a minimally paid staff member of the city.
Okay, well, will do.
Okay. Moving on, and I think I know the answer to this, but when I get to page 10, the last paragraph, elected officials shall not use their influence, power, or position to reward or give favors in return for partisan participation on any campaign for any candidate or cause. I assume, I think the term partisan, I don't know if that was necessary, 1. 2, I assume it's not meant to prohibit us from taking a stand or influencing a particular candidate for office, whether that's amongst our colleagues or elsewhere.
I believe you asked that question at
think
the
I did.
last meeting as well. And I don't believe the intent is to prohibit, especially elected officials, from participating in politics. Now, as far as staff, we have policies already in
Right.
place. Now, I think the limitation would probably be on using, such as endorsing from the dais in a council meeting. That would probably be
Right.
out of bounds.
Probably wouldn't be
But-
cool to do that from up here.
I hope not, but.
But you're not taking my First Amendment right
Exactly.
away from me when I walk out.
And there was
of here.
discussion about that at the committee level as well. But if you feel that it's still a little restrictive, I can try to take another pass at that.
No, I guess I just want to note on the record that it's not intended to do that, so that way we can reflect on it in the future. I don't think it's intended to prohibit us from, if one of us seeks a higher office and if we all come out in favor of that person, it wouldn't prohibit us from doing that, or wouldn't give somebody cause to come after us on an ethical violation of our policy.
Rob, I had highlighted the same one.
Okay.
It's not intended to be, and I don't interpret that provision that way.
I don't
but
think you all talked about it in that fashion either.
No.
They did not.
I would encourage, that this online training that's referenced on page 15, or, the 30 days to complete, 30 minutes. I do this I took a training my first day. I referenced this when we talked about it. My first day as a city employee in another city in this valley when I worked there early in my career, and it was a 30-minute, quick, to the point. This was the backup material that I was obligated to read and sign, and I think that's the intent. But hopefully you keep that training to a minimal impact on the folks' professional life. It is already.
Couldn't we just be
We're
invited
looking-
to one of those?
We're looking at an electronic system, though.
Yeah, the intent is for employees, it's going to be placed in as one of the ongoing annual requirements for the performance review. The requirement will be extended to city council. It's intended to be online. Sandra from the training department's already contacted me to update on when does she need to get that complete. So the answer she'll hear tomorrow is soon.
In this one, I've got a little bit of a beef with one of our administrative guidelines and policies, and this opened the door to it. If I look at page 11, 3.1, talks about use of city time, personnel, equipment, property, and resources, and I know we're going through, and John, you and your staff are rehashing some of the administrative guidelines that talk about the use of your personal PC at home and that sort of thing. And all of our administrative guidelines reference the use of a personal PC as being open to the same policies as they are within a city. But it does not delineate the difference between using a web-based platform for email, which, given the technology and the changes in the last time the revision, or really the conception of that guideline was back in 2001, and the fact that when I do an email, it sits resident on a server here and there's a record of it and it's kept, does not necessarily, it may, if I was to download a document, and I'm sure we could get into all kinds of legalistic arguments here, it may open up my personal PC for public records. But I'd like to see some more specificity from you and your staff on that and some guidelines on that, because quite frankly, when I read the policy, it then says that you can come in and ask me for my computer at any given time, and I will tell you I will fight you to the death if you're going to take my computer out of my house for one simple email that has no attachment that was never downloaded at my house. So, not that I'm trying to be secretive, but we all use computers in different ways, in different fashions. So let's be realistic and let's be flexible and let's put the burden on folks. It doesn't specifically relate to it, but you referenced all 4 policies at the bottom, so I thought I'd bring it up.
Yeah,
Look at it as you're
that's
going
a side issue, but I certainly understand the arguments and had those discussions with our IT department as far as use of personal computers for business purposes. Yes, you're right. It potentially opens your computer up.
Right.
I
No
don't
doubt.
disagree with you on that.
I think it does. And again, it's a conversation that may be as much deeper. I just want you to know it's on my mind as we're going through changing over from one system to the next. And I think the discussion of, I think the old approach in 2001, under perhaps a different time period, was a bit draconian. So,
What I can let you know is,
if an economic development deal is coming in and the economic development department does not have a computer with them that is a city-issued computer, nor their BlackBerry that's a city-issued BlackBerry, and they simply want to sign on to drop an email that says, yes, we agree to the deal that's X millions of dollars and we're in the midst of negotiation, I don't want to prevent them or make them think and pause from doing that on a web-based platform.
those are good points. I actually had a meeting with the director of the IT department this morning. They're in the process of directing IT-specific policies, which we don't currently have. And that's certainly something I think we can build into those policies to try to clarify those issues.
But you opened it up by putting it in here, so I brought it up. Thank you. Yep. That's it for me.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Major, for doing an excellent job. Also, to the members of your committee. I reviewed this. Ken Porter and I years ago, worked on similar documents, and it's quite a task. And I appreciate the effort that all of you put forth. John, I would assume that you're going to make in your indoctrination to new employees, that this will be a part of the
Yes,
indoctrination.
it will. Yes.
That's all.
Okay, thank you very much, and thanks again to the committee, but everybody has, and I certainly have many times. And many of you have served the city in various ways, and this is certainly one of those, so you've made us better, and we thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What squad are you in?
I'm at 310th now, but I kind of go wherever they need me. So I'm at 310th now.
Oh, okay.
Combat, so.
Thanks for your,
9 more months, so.
and then you're getting out?
No, I got one more assignment in me. I'm not quite sure where I'm going to go.
Well, I'm glad you live in Goodyear.
I'm glad I'm here. It's the best place to live, right? That's why I'm here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move to Homes to Owners of Arizona. Representatives of Homes to Owners of Arizona will present information about the Neighborhood Stabilization Program. And Harvey Kraus will start that off.
Mayor and council, public, we have Ben Cheo and Bill Scalzo of Homes to Owners of Arizona here this evening, and they have received approximately $6 million of federal stimulus funds from the Neighborhood Stabilization Program. They've received approximately $6 million of federal stimulus funds, and these funds are going to be used to purchase homes in Goodyear, El Mirage, Tolleson, and Buckeye, foreclosed homes, and then they're going to rehabilitate the homes and sell the homes to low to moderate income individuals. So they're here this evening to tell us about the program in Goodyear.
Thank you for having us. We'll run through a quick presentation just to go over an overview of the program and then answer any questions afterwards. So we are the Housing Authority Maricopa County, and the Homes to Owners program is basically the branding that we created to separate ourselves from your typical government entity, because it's homeowners and interested parties, buyers, are reticent to join up with the Housing Authority or join up with the City of Phoenix when they're associated as a government entity. So, who are we? Like I said, we are the Housing Authority. We are classified as best practices for the nation for Neighborhood Stabilization Program grant funding. So, there were roughly just short of 300 grants for the nation. We're the only one nationwide that are doing green rehabilitation, getting all our homes that we buy, not only just rehabbing them, getting up to green energy standards, so Energy Star. That's actually through the Department of Energy. So it basically starts with outreach. We're reaching out to local cities, businesses, schools, faith-based city events. You know, we're trying to get to employees that work in those areas for the most part, and then those families that they touch and talk to from there. Obviously, the help that we can get from the cities and all those organizations are to talk about the program. Anybody that's interested in buying a house, moving to Goodyear, or moving one of your employees that lives in a nearby city, moving to Goodyear, and so forth. Placing brochures, handing brochures, referring people to the website. That's the biggest tool that we have. So, and that is just a quick picture of the website, just so you know. It is fully functional with videos, educating people about the green building process, what's involved to apply to be part of the get a foreclosed home that we've rehabbed. And it also keeps them current with current news, where we might be doing some homeowner trainings, walking through people through credit counseling, because that is a big tool that we're facing, is especially now with the current economy, is getting people's credit scores high enough. They might have the income, but their credit is wrecked for whatever reason. If there's one error on the credit score, it could affect it 250 points just for having one error, true or not. So that's that. So the quick approach, and I won't read through all of those, basically starts from outreach. We walk through all those points, generating an interest list. Everybody that is interested in the program has to go through our office. One of the problems with all the other programs in the state that they're running into, which is why they're not getting any money out of the stimulus funds, are people are just going to counseling, and it's all willy-nilly. You've got 100 people gone through counseling, but only 3 qualify. So now they're paying for 100 people to do counseling for no reason. So basically, the interest list will come through us. We'll do all the verifications, the counseling, basically through all that process, sell them the home, and then they get a 2-year warranty when they close. Just basically the same as if they bought a new home from a builder nearby. I personally used to work with a large builder, a couple of large builders, and a warranty process is definitely essential to making that new home feel. So those are some of the qualifying steps. Again, I don't think I will break that down too much because it does get pretty lengthy dealing with HUD, to say the least. Again, there are certain steps that they absolutely have to do. Now, as far as our rehab approach, identifying the homes, 75% have to be, don't have to be, 25% have to be 50% of median income or lower, which means for a family of 4 is roughly $33,000. I think that's actually in your brochure. So it depends on family size. You could have 12 kids and make $50,000 or so and be below the 50% median income. So we have to target those groups, at least 25%. And then the other 75% is free to do with what we want as far as it's underneath the maximum income limit, which would be a family of 4 would be $79,000. So that's pretty flexible for us as far as getting these people into a home.
Sure.
Absolutely.
So basically what you're telling me is they're going to come to you and you're going to qualify. So, because I noticed in some of the literature, they're allowed to go out to outside lenders, that you don't just have a specific lender, and they're going to have to go FHA.
Yes, they have to go FHA, and they need to be orientated.
But you are going to be the pre-qualifiers, so we know that when they go that, we're not going to have any games at that outside lender who's going to qualify them on ratios that are far too, because that's how we got in this trouble. So that's controlled, as long as I have that assurance, because that always concerns me. So pretty much it's a sale for that mortgaged person.
Absolutely. We don't want to compound it because the purpose of the grant is to mitigate the effect of foreclosures on the community. So you're restoring that neighborhood or that city, kind of depend on the situation.
So the neighbors can be assured that people that are moving into these homes certainly can afford the payment they're going to have to make, and that should calm a lot of nerves of people thinking somebody's there that shouldn't be.
They have to be credit ready, council member, and they also have to have training, counseling, and a variety of things. This is a very low risk. Can't ever say there's no risk, and they have to stay in the home for a while. They can't just buy these homes up and flip them. If they do, they lose certain things. And they're not going to get value out of it. And so the whole idea, if they get any kind of loan assistance, there's also some requirements they live there even longer. So it's a very tight program. This is not a giveaway.
And this is because I don't have the information on hand, but when you say they can't sell the house, for a certain period of time, is this the type of program, once they go to sell the home, that they're only allowed a certain amount of money to make, and then the portion of that goes back into this program?
Some of it depends on what sort of assistance they get. If they get down payment assistance, it falls under the home rules, which basically there's a 5, 10, or 15-year payback, either payback or they have to sell it to somebody else in that same income range. And so the one unique thing about our approach, the city of Phoenix is doing $15,000 down payment assistance, which they have 15-year rule. So they have to sell it to somebody for that 15 years. Now, and that's their limit. Now, we could sell one of those low-income families, if we buy a house for $100,000, put 20 in, and it's 120, and they can only afford, say, $80,000, $75,000. One, we can't sell it for more than we have in it. If it appraises at 180 and we've got 120 in it, we can only sell it for 120. We can't make a profit, which is good and bad, but it's a good thing ethically.
I'm sorry, what does that do to the neighborhood as far as when they're going to get out and get
Comps.
Comps, thank you. I had a loss of words read. And so how does that affect the neighborhood?
It shouldn't affect the neighborhood. What our realtors have found, it's really only going to be about a $10,000 or $20,000 difference in price. It's not, that's an extreme example that I gave you. For example, like El Mirage, the medium home price is like $68,000. So we're going to be a couple $1,000s difference than really what the houses are selling for. One unique thing about Goodyear is that the market seems to have sucked up, so to speak, most of the foreclosures all of a sudden in the last 6 weeks. So it's down about 80%, the foreclosures in Goodyear. So some of that has to do with what the individual, I know Estrella Mountain has a certain approach they were doing for foreclosures, but it's also, you're basically the most desirable place to live on the West Valley. So, so again, we're fighting with people that want to live here.
Mayor and council, the whole idea here is to get these foreclosed homes off the market with families living in them, not become rental properties. And so that's where the value will be added, because you're not going to have every other house rented to somebody or foreclosed. You're going to have families in it that are stable or living here. Hopefully we get some of the folks from the Air Force Base. I thought that was great when you had them here today. They're a great customer. They could literally be eligible for these programs and come in here and buy homes and stabilize communities. The whole idea is stabilization. It's not just the price, because once you stabilize this, prices are going to go up, because people want to live in those kind of communities. They don't want to live in one with all foreclosed or all renters.
The foreclosure is gone. That's the most important thing, I think. Put a family in there. All right. So this quick approach, basically just a quick summary again, identifying the homes, the process that goes through, the rehab activities. Every home will receive an energy audit before, to identify the needed things that we're going to do, and then after to verify exactly how much energy savings we have, and then give those buyers an exact amount of energy they're going to use for gas, electric, and so on, and water. So it's just an added benefit of buying one of these homes. So why the rehab approach? It does give us unlimited amount of assistance we could buy. Theoretically, we could sell a house for $1. There are no rules against that on our approach, but obviously we won't do that for most reasons. But it does gives us flexibility to assist people as necessary. Also it gives instant equity. Again, if there's $10,000 under appraised value is what we have to sell it for, they have $10,000 in appraised value. It keeps a little buffer for them for a burden in case there is some more market fluctuations as well. And that's pretty consistent. We'll probably have 10% or more equity. And again, it's reducing the burden of home ownership. All the green improvements, the cost of operating your home, the cost of acquiring your home, we're going to pay all the realtor fees, the closing costs. That helps just reduce the burden for that homeowner that's buying as well.
And one of the related issues, Mayor and Council, is that we want to create more jobs, because the rehabilitation is going to use local contractors that'll be contracted through the Housing Authority to do the repairs, to bring in the new appliances, to do the insulation. So it creates jobs on top of. And that's one of the whole ideas of the stimulus program. It's not just the energy sustainability that we're achieving. It's not just selling a home and getting people in it, but it's creating jobs. And a lot of these jobs will be small companies, not these massive companies that will be doing it. They'll be local, and we'll try to get as many involved as possible. So we're stimulating your economy. Those are sales tax that will stay here in Goodyear.
When we solicited for contractors and realtors, we had obviously a large number, and we qualified them based on certain criteria. Our general contractors that are going to do most of the rehab, there were 5 that we qualified, and we're going to use them all, as long as everybody's prices are in line, obviously. But all of them are local. They're West Side contractors. So whether their employees live on this side, they live here, and so on. The same again with the realtors and all that group. So there's definitely greater impact than just taking a foreclosure off the market. So like I mentioned, green improvements, maximizing program income. That's basically just macroeconomics, just flipping, buying, selling, buying, selling, buying, selling. So over the period of 3 years, we will have generated about 18 to 22 million. Obviously, mainly based on home prices, and that's a pretty conservative estimate. 25 is probably more likely, and that's just we will be, instead of just buying and selling one time, 40 homes out of that original 6 million. As we go over and over and over, we should be able to do 125 and 175 units, and that is between the 4 cities. And again, that kind of fluctuates depending on the market, what's available. So. All right. There's your little did you know. That's one of the reasons to help reduce the burden is the low to middle income do move back to rentals quite a bit, and that's a pretty conservative figure there. So that's how complicated the processes get. I won't ask you to read that, and that's just to buy a house. HUD. So, and that's HUD, Maricopa County. We won't go into that. So, all right. So one of the things we had to really define is some of our purchase standards. Some was to keep some of the costs down. We didn't want to be buying houses that were just really need to be demolished, or they're more than anything. So we needed to also make it feasible to upgrade all the homes to Energy Star standards. And these are some of the requirements: two-car garage for obvious safety's sake, no pools because HUD doesn't allow pools, and post-1979 construction for lead-based paints, any kind of asbestos possibilities as well. So those are some of the simple ones.
Why no block homes?
Why no block homes? Most of the block homes were pre-1979 anyway. It's almost
Really large builder in this community that's all they do.
And that was actually something we were discussing again today, because they are relatively easy to get up to Energy Star standards.
And all those block homes that I'm referencing are definitely post-1979.
So, and that's a possibility. As the market tightens, our board approves these, which they're appointed by Maricopa County. We might take off 1, 2 here just to allow us to have enough homes to purchase. So, all right. So currently we have 12 homes that are active bidding as of today. We've divided $1.5 million at the moment just to make sure we don't flood the market with bids to each realtor group. So they have to buy a minimum of 15 homes each, maximum of 20. So, and that's in the 3 cities, not including Tolleson in this group. So, like I mentioned, Goodyear market conditions have changed a little bit recently, so they're going to see what they can get this time. But again, it really fluctuates week to week. They can have 20 on the market next week and 0 the week after. So, and that's where we are currently. Yeah, that's as long as it's not investors. Exactly. All right. So energy savings, I won't really go into this too much. Everything will get a full appliance package, including a washer and dryer, high efficiency set. And that's where you get the most savings is a high efficiency washer. 58% on electrical, 38% on water usage. So, so that'll include solar attic fan for ventilation, windows, lighting upgrades. Like I mentioned before, all homes will get an energy audit. Energy saving, all homes will be upgraded to 15 SEER. That doesn't matter if they have a 12 SEER or 13 SEER currently. We will just take that out and donate it to someone and help that mitigate the costs. And again, this is just so we can meet all those Energy Star standards. Sealing the ductwork, upgrading everything. That's a good graphic. Cash coming out of your ducts. If you have never had an energy audit, or if you got a home over 5, 6 years old, I definitely recommend contacting the Department of Energy for an energy audit.
That kind of duct also is not efficient.
Exactly. There you go. So energy saving, one of the neat things about the recycled green fiber products is that the recycle bins you see at Walmart, those kind of retailers are set out by the insulation companies, and they collect all the newspapers because they need that high. They needed that high of a volume when everything was busy to get enough recycling. So again, 3 tons recycling for a 1,500 square foot home. So another approach, not just energy, but conservation. So that's water. Also for low VOC paint. Satellite irrigation system is probably the biggest impact for outside irrigation. I guess is the only way to say that. So
What do you mean by satellite irrigation system?
basically, it cuts up.
Satellite irrigation system.
It basically cuts up the earth into quarter-mile grids. So if it rains in your quarter-mile grid, it'll reset your timer.
So you don't use water.
So it won't use water. If the humidity's higher, it'll adjust it in one day. If the temperatures drop, it'll adjust it out 2 days, that kind of thing. So when we give these to the homeowners,
It's cool.
On the market?
we'll give them a 2-year subscription. And it's like $34 a year. It's pretty cheap. And you
Subscription.
save more than that on the water savings. So, and the timers are only about $380. So a normal timer is $125. So it's a good saver.
What Ben is illustrating from mayor and council is these are actually going to be some great homes, and we need to get the word out to as many people as possible. We've been working with Harvey and your staff and the manager's office, and we want these homes sold and people in them so we can buy more as quickly as possible, because they're going to get great homes and a great community. I mean, for a price that's wonderful, but your market then will just take off because you're going to be filling these homes, and people are going to say, well, they have really great homes in Goodyear that are energy efficient too.
So I won't go into too much more detail. We're going to try to get some accessibility for at least one bathroom. You know, if you either the occupant or a visitor will be able to have access to a widened, basically a handicap access bathroom for the most part. Also, we look into proximity to transits, you know, location of their family-based social centers. You know, if they go to church in Apache Junction and they work up in, you know, Anthem, and then we will try to counsel them out of living, you know, in Buckeye. So, for obvious reasons.
Are you making it fully compliant? Are you redoing cabinets and counters as well? Okay.
Just these what you see here, yeah. Because obviously it would get extremely expensive.
Can't afford that. Well, that's what I mean, if you get into adjustable cabinetry and everything, it gets really pricey.
So the total savings is basically roughly $500 a year on average. A bigger home would be quite a bit higher, but this is, you know, electric, water savings, and then carbon footprint is kind of an unquantifiable savings. So the average person, carbon footprint, average family of two, is 41,000 pounds per year of carbon footprint. So obviously want to green it up. So, again, a 2-year warranty. I won't go into that. Being a former customer service manager. And that's it. My biggest challenge with HUD has been thinking outside the box, to say the least. So definitely welcome any questions you have.
Who honors that warranty? Do you? The county, or do you?
We will facilitate that. So we set aside a certain amount of grant funds, and we also purchase a certain amount of a third-party warranty that'll cover most of the major stuff. But we'll have a dedicated warranty person, just like a builder, for that whole time.
And is CDAC in any way, do they make the decisions on how much money goes to each city? Who makes that decision?
No, Mayor and Council, the way this was done is community development, the county received the funds. They were sort of done proportionately. They weren't necessarily competitive. The Neighborhood Stabilization Program 2 is a competitive one, and it looks like there'll be a third one also. But they got a certain amount of money. The Board of Supervisors of the county indicated that they wanted the housing authority, not the county per se, to go out and buy homes. And the housing authority is in that business, and it's a standalone authority with a great deal more power. And so the housing authority is contracting with community development. Community development has identified an amount of money, the $6.3 million or $6.2 million, that the housing authority can use to go out and buy these foreclosed homes, do the rehab, and get it out. They have not said to us, you have to do, you know, $1 million in Goodyear. What they've said is go out and do an effective job, acquire as many homes, take the money that you get back and buy more homes and keep it moving. And again, it's going to depend on the market. We can't control the market. We're going to try to help improve it. But that market is going to determine where there are available homes that we can afford and buy.
Yeah, the idea is to concentrate your efforts. You know, if you can buy 3 homes in one community, in one neighborhood, and that takes all the 3 in that foreclosure section out, then we'll buy those 3. And that's the general idea. And a lot of it just depends on what the realtors find from week to week. Again, it's pretty crazy the way the market is right now. But Fannie Mae is sitting on something like 45. It's either 45 or 52,000 foreclosures.
Whoa.
So and we have first look capability before the banks, so we can buy those up before they're out for the public. So
Foreclosures aren't over. I mean, there's still happening.
Absolutely. So
Other questions or
Yeah, I'm
comments?
just curious on, you say they have a 2-year guarantee, so on a mechanical and electrical, 2 years. Who has that warranty? So you're going to use local businesses to do this work. So do they have to agree that they will guarantee and come back and for 2 years? Because usually it's a year.
We'll have it layered. HUD requires you to do 1 year,
That's
a
most
full warranty. And, of course, the registrar of contractors is 2 years for workmanship. So anybody we've had in there will automatically do their 2 years. And then basically the warranty we will buy locally will fill in the gaps for those homes. So it's a pretty good deal. That was probably the hardest selling point with the county.
When you're talking to the prospective homeowner, do you explain to him what, besides owning the home, what his responsibility is for bills that come with that home?
Absolutely.
Like taxes, electric, gas, and so on.
Absolutely. They're required, all the homeowners are required to do an 8-hour HUD certification class where they go over their credit and then the costs of home buying and so on and so forth down that line. The 25% group is required to have one-on-one education with a counselor, which is exceedingly more detailed. And basically, they'll have somebody sitting beside them signing title, going through all the costs and budget forming. It's pretty intense because that's our main concern is that lower income bracket. One of the other requirements we put on the counseling agency, we're using NHS Southwest Maricopa County, which is right and down the street from you guys. They instead of your usual ratios on how you can afford a house, knock that down 5% for safety. So we've got plenty of interest generated, and we want to build more to fill that gap where people can qualify. It's not, our goal isn't to get everybody in a house that really wants to. It's the people that can actually make it work and really enjoy it, and not be a burden. So, but that's a good question.
And Mayor and Councilman, I can tell you, today we met with the assessor for the county and the treasurer. They made it very clear they expect the taxes to be paid. When we have it during an interim period, when we buy it, the taxes will be paid up to date by the seller, hopefully not by some portion by us, but we could pay a portion if we had to. And then when we sell it, they have to pay the taxes. We make it very clear to them that's important to these communities. Only about 10 to 12% of it goes to the county, but it's very important to school boards and others that these taxes be paid. That's why we want to fill them with real people that can pay and have families that use the services, be they the schools or what have you.
What brought that to mind is this TV show that builds a fabulous home for a deserving couple and family. And they move in, and a year later, they're faced with real estate taxes and everything else that goes with it. And they had to sell the home.
Yeah.
Should have sold it the day.
The education.
Not even thought out.
I understand that. Well, having worked on the Fiesta Well home in Flagstaff personally, that was one of the concerns. That was the first thing they said when they got picked off before they could put them on the bus. Make sure I can afford this, so don't build me something too big.
Well, it's important because the people that are going to live on both sides of these homes are concerned about the people who are moving in, whether they're qualified and maintain their property.
We don't want to.
That's important to us here, to the city as a whole. So.
We don't want to draw down the community.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No, I just applaud you for your efforts. I'd encourage you. I doubt that the one, I'll call it exclusive community, would qualify in your program, the block homes. Actually, it's Pebble Creek. But there are other block homes in our communities that are
I was
built
going to say when you said
post
block homes,
1979. So,
our homes.
but I don't know if your program or your other county programs are going out to Sun Lakes area and that sort of thing. You got a lot of homes there.
Energy efficient too by being.
Yeah, we're trying to stay out of. Actually, one of the requests is to stay out of like Verado, Buckeye, Australia Mountain. Those ones that can really mitigate it themselves. It really is to help the communities that couldn't band together and do it all as one.
No, I applaud you. Your efforts are great, and I think the fact that you're bringing them up to some green standards and the accessibility one, I mean, you might even look at, I forget the name. I think it's the Bridge to Independent Living or something.
Bridge to Independent.
It was the old group that Peggy used to work
Yep.
with, the former
I know
mayor
the one
of
you're
Mesa.
talking
We worked a lot with them when we were on the light rail project and trying to encourage homes, but we've got some disabled veterans out here that really could have benefited from some of the 42-inch doors and flat handles and that sort of thing, so you may look at them too.
We are reaching out to some of the disabled veterans groups.
Good.
And, if we have 5 of them, we'll basically gut the house, whatever they need.
Are you doing the doors? I mean, I was just thinking you're doing the bathroom, one bathroom. Are you doing the front door and the hallways?
Yeah, it said a zero entry, and
Yeah, I mean,
you
because
can roll right in.
if you have one bathroom, that really isn't going to do them any good because they can't get in the
Yeah,
house
it's
and down
mainly
the hall.
across the board, we're going to do that, and then if they are actually the ones living there, then we'll do the entire home accessible.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
That is phenomenal.
Can we help in any way to get the word out, or what do you want from us?
I think some of it would be, just make sure we've got some on your news bulletins on your website. Maybe just even having brochures in your lobby where people are walking through, can pick them up. Another one, like I said, outreaching to employees seems to be the best one. I know, any city has most of their employees, a lot of them don't even live in the city, so they can avail themselves of the opportunity as well. So, and if any inquiries come to the city desk, where whoever answers the phones, they can direct them to the right people, which would be us and our website. So that'd be the best. And I know I can work with Harvey and Katie Wilkin and get as many brochures as they need. That's the main thing. Tell everybody you know.
In focus?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Hey, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good to see you again, Bill.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Listening to what you're saying about the program, two things. First, who is the enforcement agency in this program?
The Housing Authority, Maricopa County, yes.
And then the second question has to do with, one thing I'm not going to straighten out, you might have some friends over at Candy Trail. And we're seeing something very consistent throughout the city of Goodyear. The homeowner associations are failing to manage their own communities. And are you actually going to regulate or enforce the fact that when somebody moves into a home, that they don't live there for a year and then bail out, rent it to somebody, and then suddenly you have neighborhoods, because again, we're seeing this all over our city. We're seeing neighborhoods that have these tenants that are moving in that are really screwing up the neighborhood. And the city, the homeowner association, the management company, nobody's enforcing anything. And being that it's a government agency, I don't want to file a prosecution, just because I don't have that confidence. The city of Goodyear did a good job of managing its own real estate market. So that's going to give me that reassurance that you're going to do the job correctly.
Okay, I think he's given you that. Would you respond, please?
Definitely. I think to answer a lot of your questions, we have a lot of that explained on the website on how we're approaching our homes, what we're doing. They have to move into the house as their primary residence for 3 months. If they don't, 3 months and 1 day, we own the home again. It's infinitely complicated how the FHA manages their home. There's also requirements we're having for the housing, the HOA, for that 2-year period. If the HOA has issues, as a government entity, we do have eminent domain, which is a scary thing. But we were putting in a requirement they have to maintain their HOA, and it's real layered on how we're asking them to participate. Because the last thing we wanted, and one of the comments we got when we did the El Mirage presentation, similar to yours from the HOA managers, was I don't want a bunch of people coming in and basically making my community, my neighborhood worse, and not maintaining it. And all of us live in a community where there's several people that don't maintain it. But we're going to build it in as much as possible to where it's required to that extent. We only might have 20 homes in one section. Those 20 should be responsible.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, could I, point of order, the next item I'm not going to sit through because I actually have a professional colleague working on this project, so I'll declare a conflict and not be a part of the meeting. If you, I It's real one quick thing for me, and then I'll get out of everybody's hair this evening, given that this is the last agenda item. But attended the AmLaw meeting this last week. Appreciate Mr. Iwanski's support on that and educating me, and to get the time to go through the formality of it. Appreciate everybody's support in sending me down there. It was a very interesting discussion, and there's some interesting discussions going on about between the CAP and AmLaw and the next bucket of water, and what do we do, and how do we keep track of it. So some pretty dynamic conversations going on. We have a meeting Monday, correct? Yes. Okay, so it's the next one I'll be missing.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
And, yeah, just take off, because this is the last.
That's what I intended to do. Good luck, Rob.
Okay,
Bob.
Bob, I know you didn't come here with the intention of sitting around for 2 hours, but it's, anyway, we can move quickly here and we'll get to you. All right, Luke Albert, you're going to lead us off on the MAG's Hidden Valley Framework Study.
Tonight, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Tonight we have Bob Hazlitt here from MAG to provide an update on the I-8 and I-10 Hidden Valley Transportation Framework Study. And with that, I'll turn it over to Bob.
Thank you, Luke, and Mayor and members of the Goodyear City Council. I appreciate the opportunity once again to make a presentation on the Hidden Valley Transportation Framework Study. This has been around for a couple of years, and I'm going to kind of go through this presentation as quickly as possible, just simply because there's a lot of this I've already presented to the council in the past, but I'd like to at least bring you up to date as to where the study stands. It's right in the middle of an acceptance process right now through the MAG Regional Council, and at least to share with the council what the final recommendations are of the study. Most of you have probably seen this graphic before, where we talk about the location of where the Hidden Valley area is. It's the area predominantly down to the south of what is now metropolitan Phoenix, roughly about 3,200 square miles. It's about the size of the state of Delaware. So it's a pretty significant part of real estate that we took a look at. It's all kind of a tag on to the successful Hassayampa Valley study that was completed and accepted by MAG Regional Council back in February of last year. Oops, I'm going the wrong way. There we go. This is my warranty slide that I always give with a lot of these presentations about frameworks. This is mainly a response to growth. I know it's tough to talk about growth in these hard economic times, but if history is any bit of our guide, whenever we do have a recession and when the Arizona economy comes back, it comes back with a roar. And there's no sense not to believe that as we take a look at our state and that we are going to continue to grow. The locations that you see on here are all subject to change because there are a number of other studies that have to happen. So hence, this is a framework study. This is no different than the very first framework study that was done in Phoenix back in 1960, and it laid out our regional freeway system, Loops 101, Loops 202, State Road 51, I-17, and I-10. Again, I talked a little bit about the Hassayampa Valley Framework Study. Goodyear was a participant on this study, both technically as well as financially. Really helped us out on this particular effort, and as you can see, this addressed mainly the area west of the White Tank Mountains. What many of you may have seen in the newspaper, the article about Interstate 11 and the potential for that. A lot of that came out of both of these framework studies, and if you look at this screen over here, I'll point out this Hassayampa Freeway. That is the corridor that is being talked about as being the potential for Interstate 11, which would be the freeway to Las Vegas, and it does figure prominently into the Hidden Valley study that I'll get to here shortly. The Hassayampa Valley study didn't look just at roads, it also had a transit element as well. The funding partners on this Hidden Valley study, as you can see here, are listed on the board, and definitely the City of Goodyear was a participant on this study financially and as well as technically, and we really do appreciate their efforts on this particular project. We had a study review team that consisted of many members, almost 25 different resource agencies participated on this, and then we also had a very extensive outreach to a number of key stakeholders. In fact, on this project alone, there were 225 meetings. I personally attended 182 of them, but we had a lot of meetings on this particular project to work out consent on this on the effort that you see. As I stated before, this is the study area, size of the state of Delaware. I point your attention to the box down here in the corner where you see the population and employment numbers. With what is entitled in the Hidden Valley area, we have the potential population of about 2.5 million people and employment of about 1 million people. We did an environmental scan as we were working on this particular project. This is what launched the entire project. The idea behind this is that whenever any of these major transportation corridors come into play, there's always a lengthy environmental process that has to go into this. And so as we started this entire project, we started mapping out these features that helped us to avoid these as we were laying out the corridors. You can see all these different issues that are down here, ranging from things like environmental justice and Title VI, all the way up to hazardous materials, slope analysis, wildlife corridors, all that was mapped. And that was meant not only to help us with this particular project, but also to help folks that continue to develop in the Hidden Valley area, that they can pull up any one of these 36 different maps that are available on the bqaz.org website, and they can start to take a look at them and say, hey, am I going to be hitting any of this? So this information has already been mapped out and made available to whoever develops in this particular area. We did look at a number of different framework alternatives. I'll dispense with that just to go to the actual recommendation that you see right here. This particular is the framework recommendation. It has already been heard now by all the committees at MAG, including the Regional Council. They heard it back in July, and it will be on Regional Council's agenda next Wednesday for their acceptance of the study. When we do acceptance of framework studies, it's mainly because we don't adopt them, because a lot of the information you see here, all these corridors are unfunded. Whenever you adopt it or you put it into a plan, that means that there's some sense of funding behind it. We don't have that particular effort here. However, we wanted to at least get in front of growth and start laying a lot of these things out, and so that's why we call it a framework study. Just tagging off on the I-11 corridor, the Hacienda Freeway, as we have shown right here, kind of entering over here to the near where Palo Verde is, and then wrapping around into this central and southern part of Goodyear. So the Interstate 11 corridor would be identified here in Goodyear. This is Loop 303 extension, and then a spur of Loop 303 down here to Interstate 8. They would share a common corridor through the Mobile area, which is part of the city of Goodyear, and then Interstate 11 here would continue on over here to Interstate 10 and terminate. This whole corridor right here, as you can see, not only provides access to this growing area that we would have, it also provides to a de facto bypass of the Phoenix metropolitan area as well, and hence that's how the corridor came into being. We've also gave definition, obviously, to State Road 85 becoming a full freeway, identifying traffic interchanges along there. We also gave recommendations here for Interstate 10. And then we also gave recommendation here for another couple of spur freeways over here in Pinal County to help with the travel demands here. You will see here, this is the Gila River Indian community. We made no recommendations for any new corridors across tribal lands, both the Akshan community and the Gila River community. That was on purpose because, again, they're sovereign nations, and we wanted to really channel the growth around these communities. And you can see that as you can see the Hacienda Freeway itself kind of forming its way around and providing access to the existing metropolitan area. This was kind of an unprecedented study of sorts because it did involve MAG working with Pinal County as well as the city of Maricopa on this particular project. Both of them are not MAG member agencies, but they invited us into that because they recognized how these areas are going to start to function and kind of grow together. Growth knows no boundaries in a lot of respects. They don't recognize county lines or city limits, and so we felt it was a really terrific opportunity for MAG to be able to do that. And of course, all the participating agencies that were on this, including the city of Goodyear, were able to participate with these neighboring communities in identifying these transportation corridors. Last but certainly not least on the map, you do see green lines. Those are the parkways that we've got identified. This is the Arizona Parkway, which has the indirect left. We have that identified as being a part of the corridor. State Road 347, in fact, being a part of this. There's a number of other coloring lines up here, a commuter rail loop, if you will, that's in this particular area right here to be able to kind of connect up to some commuter rail corridors that have been identified, as well as other transiting corridors. You see these large pink blobs that kind of look to be the day-to-day bus service that would be ultimately provided in these areas as they start to approach maturity in terms of build-out and stuff like that. So we've not necessarily just identified roadways, but also identified, too, a very important transit component to the entire framework. The acceptance resolution that the MAG Regional Council has been asked to consider on this is going to be on screen here. I'm not going to go through each individual one. I just want to point out that the Mayor Rogers of Avondale had asked us to make certain that we make certain the resolution state that they are long range and that they are unfunded illustrative corridors. Illustrative corridors is something that the federal government allows MPOs to be able to include in their transportation plans as future corridors. Given the fact that it takes somewhere up to 40 to 50 years for some of these corridors to materialize, they allow us to go ahead and put these corridors into plans so that people can start to plan for them and start to plan around them. And the last part of the acceptance resolution is that we coordinate this with the tribal councils of both Gila River and Ak-Chin. We have made numerous presentations to both of those communities, and they have made a lot of recommendations back, and we have incorporated those into the frameworks. So, Mr. Mayor and members of council, that is my presentation. I'll leave this on screen in case council has any questions that they would like to ask of this.
Okay, thank you. Questions on this side? Over here?
Is this CanMax? Is this going to be part of the CanMax?
Yeah, Mayor and members of council, yes, Mr. Cavalier, that is the idea of some of this, is that it gave a little bit better definition to the CanMax corridors.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes. Any reports by council members? City manager?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just one. I passed out a yellow paper on the question that was asked at last week's council meeting about salary increases over the last 60 days. And just to briefly review it, we showed the salary increases, but we also showed the salary decreases. There were 5 full-time employee increases in pay, 2 reclassifications, 2 promotions, and 1 criteria-based promotion. And there were 3 full-time employee decreases in pay, 1 removal of an acting assignment, 1 demotion, and 1 reduction in pay. And they're all listed individually on the back side of this paper. And we'll work with Frank to get the name of the individual. Tim something.
Tim Riley.
Tim
Riley.
How do you spell that? I'm sorry.
R-I-L-E-Y.
Oh, okay. Thank you. And I will make sure that he gets this information also. The net, I just did a quick calculation. The net increase to the city of all these changes was basically roughly $4,000 annually. So that's the information that we promised you we'd get this last week. So that's all I have right now, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions of staff by council?
I just have, concerning this, does this give us a complete staffing plan for the city? Do you have a staffing plan that you could share with us?
Yes, we do.
This, there's been so many changes, I'm confused about who's doing what and
okay,
who reports to whom and whatever.
We can get that for you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Meeting is adjourned.